crops in some countries that are to the food security as well. But it's really costly. And as we know, the best way is to do the prevention. And for the COVID, we are talking about the vaccine. And when you talk about aflatoxin, I think we need to look at the preventive measures that will help us also to address that. Next slide, please. So we recognize that the aflatoxin is a complex issue and that with impact on the public health, environment, trade, and economy, and the food security. And it requires a really holistic response that encompasses the technology angle, policy, market, also some changes at the institutional level and even in the behavior of the different actors. So let's look at the next slide, and from the technological front, what we've been doing. And we talk about the prevention. That the prevention is something very important to address the issues. And I think from the research point of view, researchers have been working on different kind of innovations, looking at the breeding that will help to address the issue of aflatoxin and different kind of measure. But what is available today? Can you return, please? The previous slide. And the researcher came up with a technology that helped to reduce the aflatoxin at the production level as a prevention measure. And that will help up to 90% reduction. But more important, how do we deploy, make this technology available to the users? And it requires some kind of thinking about the pathway to scale and to see what will be the role of the public sector and the private sector, and how do we incentivize those actors, and how we can find a potential partnership with the public and private sector to drive the scaling. Next slide, please. Based on this analysis and the pathway to identify the pathways, we build an ecosystem, because to drive the scaling of this innovation is beyond the research. The scaling is beyond the research, and we need to have to build an ecosystem of actors along the value chains, and to make sure that they are really involved. You have aggregator processors, try to drive the demand. You have the farmers organization. You have also supportive institutions, policymakers, research, regulatory agencies that can work on the enforcement of regulation, and development partners to support this, to support the process. But as you can imagine, look at the consumers. And in our example, even though we are working with the processors directly and aggregator in the system, in the ecosystem, it's quite empty consumers. We assume that processors and aggregators are our link with the consumers, and their behavior, their demand translated in what the processors need. But we have to be careful about that, because when we don't take them also as a complete part to understand the whole spectrum, we can miss some segment. And the processors, aggregators might focus to a niche market that might not be limit the availability of the innovation to other segments, and some, especially in the informal market. When you look at the policymakers, you'll see that most of the actors that we're able to involve are in the agricultural space, Ministry of Agriculture and so on. So we talk about health, we talk about trade, we talk about environment. Where are they? They are missing. We've been able to engage them appropriately. So I think it's sure that we come up to that some of the limitations, how we can work together to address those issues and accelerate the scaling of innovation. Next slide, please. Using this approach and building this ecosystem, we've been able to really advance, to expand the use of this, the technology innovation across the continent, where you have businesses setting up manufacturing plant, organizing the distribution, working with the regulators, working with the processors and farm organizations to move things forward. Before I come to the last point about some of the challenges and how the multi-sectoral approach and the data will help us to accelerate the innovation, I would like to give the floor to one of the companies, working in Nigeria to commercialize the technology, to give their perspective, and I'll come back in the last slide to talk about the challenges and how we can use data and to solve them and accelerate the innovation. So over to you, Dr. Abdullah.
Okay. Good day once more to all the participants. You are welcome to Harvest Field. As my co-presenter just expressed, we are a commercial entity, and the name is Harvest Field Industries Limited. We got introduced to AFLATOXIN technology through IITA. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. What we do majorly as a commercial company is the distribution of crop protection products in pesticides. We also deal in seeds and in the farming value chain. We also deal in some public health products, because a sick farmer cannot go to farm. So when you go out on extension activities to tell farmers about technologies, in most cases, we also come across simple elements and demand for things like treated insecticide treated nets, some fumigants and rodenticides for killing rats and some store pests. So that's how we deal into public health products. And for most of these products, you need application equipment for the agrochemicals. And where you are dealing with pesticides, you also need to be properly kitted in personal protective equipment. So this is the scope of our business. And our strength is in the distribution network. We have all over Nigeria. We are present in almost 30 states of the Federation. Mind you, not all states of Nigeria have equal agricultural potential. So we try to establish our offices and distribution warehouses in co-agric farming states, so that we are easily accessible to the farmers. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So IITA introduced the AFLATOXIN technology to the agrochemical industry in Nigeria, and Harvest Field, being an R&D oriented company, got interested, and we began to work with AFLATOXIN technology transfer and commercialization team at IITA. And in 2017, we entered into distribution agreement with IITA to seed the market with the AFLATOXIN technology. And by 2018, based on the performance we achieved on the field, we sought to be issued the manufacturing and distribution license on AFLATOXIN in Nigeria. And by 2020, we are thinking of constructing an AFLATOXIN manufacturing plant, and of course, creating strategies for the business. Why did we go into AFLATOXIN? AFLATOXIN is a biocontrol product that improves the quality of agricultural produce, particularly maize and groundnut in Nigeria. And this is in alignment with one of our objectives to provide green technologies for our farming system. So the area of our portfolio that we are currently putting a lot of energy to expand is to develop biological products that are different from synthetic products, and of course for obvious reasons. And our interest in AFLATOXIN also is because it addresses some health challenges. High aflatoxin levels in commodities in Nigeria, Aflatoxin in maize is reported to be greater than 30 parts per billion, and in granules over 70 parts per billion. And even processed food like vegetable oils extracted from granules, there is a record of greater than 30 parts per billion level of aflatoxin. And of course, Nigeria used to be an agricultural exporting country before the discovery of oil. And of course, before agriculture started taking back bench in our economic matrix. So we used to have, huge export demands. And the population of Nigeria today is also well over 200 million. So there is high domestic food market demand. And livestock sector is also developing. So feeds is becoming very important aspect of our agricultural system. Now, in summary, Harvest Feeds tries to drive investment and grow AFLATOXIN business based on the potentials in the Nigerian farming system, as supported by Nigerian governments in respect of food safety and security. Next slide. Now the challenges we've been facing productions as we step out with technology, we are faced with very low awareness, among the smallholder farmers. And of course, what somebody is not aware of, adoption will definitely be low. And of course, the socioeconomic status of our farmers, they scarcely can buy the necessary inputs that can impact on yield. So talk less of a material that strictly only improves quality. But our approach to this is to continue our effort on sensitization on the adverse effects of aflatoxin. And then there's also the absence of price incentive for producing aflatoxin-safe crops. There's no grading system that incorporates aflatoxin in the food standards. So the market actors need to offer premium for aflatoxin-safe commodities. And of course, enforcement of standards is also required. But to do this, definitely, there will be needs to even have the capacity to test the level of aflatoxins in our food crops. And of course, there are players, stakeholders in this regard. The federal government itself, the PACA, which is the Partnership on Aflatoxin Control in Africa, our health regulatory agency in Nigeria, NAFDAC, the Standard Organization, and CropLife and the likes of it. Of course, the adequate procurement and the provision of aflatoxin testing kits by stakeholders is also required so that we are able to establish that there is presence of aflatoxin and it is beyond the level that is required. So actions in this direction are required. But as it is today, there is weak collaboration at the national level and poor reputation about the interagency activity in the international commodity markets. So this also can be solved through better collaboration between ministries, departments, and agencies of government to achieve the goal of economic diversification and import substitution. Next slide. Our business approach to the AFLATOXIN technology is to first stratify the market and by way of clustering smallholder farmers into one group, the multinationals and large-scale farmers, and then the influence of government. In terms of hectarage, by way of estimate, smallholders account for over 6.5 million hectares of either maize, groundnut, or sesame, and the multinationals are currently doing well over 2.8 million. And of course, government has no particular hectares under its control, but they give support to farmers as may be appropriated in the budget. Now, for smallholder farmers, the way we get to them is through delivery of our inputs, including AFLASAFE to maize and groundnut farmers through their national associations, agro dealers, and our branches nationwide. But for them to be able to adopt AFLASAFE technology, we have to give them value proposition. And the value proposition to this group is safe crops, reduction in poisonous aflatoxin levels, and linkage to premium markets. But to the multinationals, they have a little awareness about aflatoxin, and we reach out to them through business-to-business supply and delivery through our branch networks. And the value proposition to them is that yes, they are aware of aflatoxin. They may have their other methods of trying to solve the problem, but AFLASAFE is 100% natural biological control. And of course, most of the multinationals are interested in reducing aflatoxin level in the raw crops they procure, and the processed foods to go below 10 parts per billion. And for government, of course, anything that will guarantee food security and safety is of importance to them. Next slide. I think Abdul will take over from here, my colleague, to wrap it up. Abdul, over to you.
Thank you, Abdul, for this presentation. And as we said at the beginning, we know that these are multi-sectoral issues, but as you can see, most of the action has been focusing on agriculture. And I think that this is something that we need to address. And we are still in this thinking and having single sector approach to a multi-sectoral problem. I think this needs to be addressed, in a collective manner. I think the second aspect is really to look at the reliable and affordable rapid testing system. How do we leverage the innovation and the data, the traceability system that will help to give the actors quick information so that they can manage their business and their supply chain? Is very critical. How can we work in this ecosystem to improve that? The environment is changing quickly and rapidly. And I think we hear in Nigeria the last time that there's a ban for the importation of commodities. And a few weeks or months after, the government gave exemption to some company to import. And although how these actors in the ecosystem can have access to the information to plan better and to really adjust their strategy. And more importantly, before we can engage effectively with other sectors, trade, economy, and other sectors, we need to have data, geospatial data at the district level about the pain, what's happening in the, at the district level in different COP and how the impact in the health, different gender, discrimination, to really engage them properly and to see how we can contribute. Of course, and that to create a market for farmers using this innovation, we have to make sure that we use also how we use the technology to connect the users of these technologies and having with the market. I think these are some of the elements that we can reflect and see how we can leverage the data and the digital transformation to address these issues and accelerate the scaling. So thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. Up next, Roger. The floor is yours, Roger.
Thank you. Thank you, Kwaku. And as Abdul said, he said a very important thing, that the basis of all of this convergence may be geospatial data. So my specialization is geospatial data. And when we look at this problem, next slide, please. We see this as a problem of integration, of a convergence of different elements of data and related to data, health and food production. And so if you can think about it, there are several already disparate elements that are present, and this is not something, one slide back, Kwaku. And all of these elements are actually still there. It's just a matter of integrating them in a holistic manner into one single platform. Next slide. And that also includes tracing the production and distribution of AFLASAFE or any other control or any other biocontrol that might. So that's part of the mechanism, right? Is to ensure not only that the food is stacked. So the convergence idea is that you look at everything holistically, but also check how your supply chain is moving, and also how the biocontrol, which might help your improve the quality of your food, also moves across space. Next slide, please. Yes, and so basically the idea here is that to bring together multiple partners and groups, including private industries, but not including government entities, to put together a system where the innovation and adoption is taking place at multiple levels. And the important thing is that there should be feedback in the system. So it's not a forward only system where you say, okay, here's AFLASAFE, let's apply it, and let's hope it makes an improvement to the production of food. But it's looked at it in a holistic manner, and then there are feedbacks that to improve the process. Next slide, please. And so there are many parts to this element. Of course, the farmers are there with production tracking, but also the fact that we can sort of create portable systems to check for the quality at the production side, but also link this to consumer behavior and health. And basically the idea, therefore, is to take consumer preferences for certain products, perhaps AFLASAFE products that are considered aflatoxin free, and then link that back to how the system, to the production system. Of course, what we cannot forget, next slide, please, is that all of this requires not just the involvement of the farmer or the producer and the end user, but that there are other actors in the middle. So the thing is that if you don't allow mitigation and control steps, you are going to end up with much higher levels of aflatoxin that has obviously a health impact. But the key here is to make sure that you also get through to the aggregators and distributors, and that there is a constant feedback mechanism, and to study the uptake of this system in sort of a dynamic simulation. And that's perfectly possible once we have collected the data to understand what these mechanisms are. And therefore, the idea is is to also overlay all of this with some institutional feedback. In our case, we try to work with the STEPRI, which is part of one of the CSIR institutes in Ghana, which is to basically try to get the institutions such as STEPRI and IITA involved in trying to create mechanisms that are outreach mechanisms and influence the process of adoption of biocontrols. Next slide, please. And so the idea, therefore, is to build a data bridge and using computational technologies that link everything from farm to food, of course, but also the food on the table, but also link to other elements like health and other elements of societal transformation. And at this point, I'm actually going to give the floor over to my colleague, Sean Brown,
Great, thanks. So, hi, my name's Sean Brown. I'm the director of the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center at Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about digital transformation and some of the technologies that we've been developing over the last few years here at the PSC, and also in working with, I recently came from McGill University where I was working with Professor Dubé and Andre to build information systems and digital infrastructure for being able to rapidly move data into analytics and bring together all sorts of types of data together for the purposes of being able to look at these complex systems and develop new technologies that will allow us to look end to end at things like agriculture and healthy food systems to try to develop metrics that would help us to understand how do we optimize our systems, not only to be sustainable and make a profit, but also improve the health and well-being of populations. So you can go to the next slide. So at the PSC, from a technological standpoint, what we've been building here for a number of years and what we are building now with our newest machine, Bridges 2, is the capability of building platforms in supercomputing and in high advanced research computing that take advantage of data or facilitate data intensive science and AI and machine learning. So, trying to build machines that are not just log in and do a bunch of simulations on molecules and weather and stuff, but actually building platforms that allow us to build complex modeling and learning systems based on the vast amounts of data that we get. Now, the technological piece of that is not exactly hard. It's building a system that allows you to have large data repositories, making it close to the system, blah blah blah, GPUs, blah blah blah. That's all fun and important, and I'm happy to talk about that. But the real advantage of these types of systems is being able to build web and digital platforms that help us to make sense of the complexity that goes on with these with things like agriculture, food systems. They are incredibly complicated, as we learned from our previous panelists. They're incredibly complicated systems involving not only manufacturers, governments, farmers, food processors, but also the populations that are consuming the products, and how do we make sure that they get secured, safe food chains, as well as increase the health and well-being of the population. One of the examples I usually gave was, if I'm a potato farmer and someone tells me that making potato chips, which are incredibly unhealthy, is the highest profit way for me to sell my potatoes, that's what I'm going to do. If I don't have any other view to say, this is how I can sustain myself and also produce something that will be healthy for the population. So we're at the PSC, we're building these platforms and to be able to build new web technologies, AI and machine learning, and other new rapidly evolving research technologies that are centered around the data that we're getting, and working on how do we put that data in a same place, making it open, making it available to the community, and building new analytic techniques around those. So our new machine, Bridges 2, will be coming. We're building it as we speak. You can see a picture of it there. It's really pretty. It really is a bunch of whirring boxes, but the power of it is that we built it we didn't build the biggest computer on earth. What we built is one that is more useful to people. So it combines, it's a heterogeneous supercomputing platform that combines the ability to have large, vast repositories of structured data, moving that into things like GPUs and accelerators and normal computing for doing the analytics and then providing tools and interfaces on top of that to allow people to build complex modeling and learning systems for rapidly evolving research. So next slide. So this is just some of the things that are more important now. So in the computing community, for decades, we focused on putting as much CPUs in a room as we could. And that was great, but now the world is changing in that computational power is not the only thing that's important. It's the ability to do the research. And what we're scaling up, instead of scaling up computation, like making computing faster, we're making the ability for people to understand what's in data that's much, much more complicated. We're scaling up the complexity of the systems that we're looking at once. And so it requires us to have a computing platform like Bridges 2 that helps us with scalable AI and machine learning. So bringing the new advent of machine learning and AI that has been prevalent throughout our the scientific community, making that bigger and more powerful, and being able to also make more sense out of the complexity of the data sets. We're very committed to open and shared data resources. One of the reasons we like working with Andre is that we really believe that putting that data out there is terribly important, and make sure that we share the love, as it were, with the data, so that others can get insight into it, and we can get a much bigger global understanding and scale out the understanding that we're doing. Making the computer more usable, not terribly important here, but that is important. People don't like to log in and hit return over and over again to do their computation, but building platforms on top of that that not only make it easier to do the analysis, but go beyond that to help us to understand the complexity of the system and the data that we're doing. So it doesn't help to make a web platform that allows you to just look at one component of the system. It needs to be something that combines the efforts and the siloed research institutions that are looking at various parts of the system and bring them together under one platform, so that we can enhance and grow our learning beyond just what our individual perspectives of each part of the system are. And then cloud and interoperability, that's not really important to this crowd. But this is what we're trying to build with Bridges 2. It's not just a supercomputer, it's a platform for doing new types of science, for catalyzing converged, unsiloed research into one system, and growing the learning that we can do with the computational aspects in the data. Next slide, please. So one of the key scientific, or one of the key technological advances that we've been working on for the last couple of years with Professor Dubé is the idea of synthetic ecosystems. So if you really want to understand how demand impacts a population, whether it be if we're looking at their overall health, whether we're looking at food security and food availability, whether we're looking at obesity, whether we're looking at infectious disease spread, the idea of having the populations are key. And so synthetic ecosystems provide us a platform for combining a large number of different data sources into a representation that is of the population. So these bore out of mostly out of influenza disease modeling, but what they do is you take census information or available population data information, do some statistical fitting on it, and what you get out of it is a data set that is statistically representative of an area of the world, that then you can look at what the impact of different aspects of interventions, food systems, statistical analysis, what that can do for the population. And also key to this is that it allows you, one of the key things we're working on is taking from closed data sets like cohort studies that have legitimate privacy concerns with them, and expanding that and extrapolating it to a population, so that we can actually use these cohort studies in a statistically accurate way to understand how the impact of our samples impact the entire population. So and also then that also helps us to obfuscate the privacy of the data and make it an open data set. So these things can be shared openly with the world, and anyone can use them for their own research. And primarily they've been used for something called agent-based modeling, which is a model that has a little computational representation of every little person in a population, and then you set up rules on how that population interacts. But it can be used for a number of other things, just like for statistical analysis of populations and visualization even of the effect of different cohort studies on what they could be on the population. Next slide, please. So what we're trying to do, and I mean, these are just Bridges 2 and synthetic ecosystems are just components of a larger ecosystem of tools that we have to develop together in order to be able to look at these complex systems in a way that we've never been able to look at them before. And all of that comes down to a concept that we've been working on again for a couple of years called the digital backbone, which is an information superhighway, to borrow ancient US technological terms, that allows everyone to connect to the data repositories and know what the data is, what form it is, and what the data is about, and what the privacy and openness of the data goes along with it. That sounds mundane, but what it is, it's a very powerful concept in that having tools that can, a lot of people develop their own analytics and tools based on like one-off data sets or one-off analysis. Having something where all of the data is connectable in a standard fashion gives you the power of being able to develop those tools for looking at across sectors and across problems rather than just develop them for one-off solutions. And one of the key aspects of this is that we have to get out of, I'll get on my soapbox a little bit with the open data. We have to get out of all the data being private and all the data. There are legitimate ethical concerns for privacy of data, but then most of the privacy of concerns of data are sociological and economical in nature. We have to get to the point where we understand that data that can be open needs to be open, because we get a greater understanding together of the systems, and it will benefit us all to have that data out in the open for people, all sorts of people to use. But it's not enough just to put it out in the open, just throw it over the fence. We have to put it in a system that people can actually use and utilize. And that's why we propose these things like the Food Convergence digital ecosystem, that it's not only about getting the data out there in a place where people can use it and connect to it, but creating a framework and an ecosystem that people can utilize the data, know what the data is, know how to use it, and be able to combine them together into new forms of analytics. The AI and machine learning revolution that we've been experiencing in the scientific world is predicated on, we have a lot of data, but it has to be something that we know what the data is about, and it has to be managed and put into a place where everyone can use it so we can gain the insight from it. So it's not just about building groovy technologies, it's about catalyzing a new kind of paradigm for collaborative and convergent collaborative research. So next slide. All right, I think that's the last slide. Oh yeah, that's the last slide. So I don't know if I'm turning it over to anybody else, but I'm happy to engage in the discussion. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you so much, Sean, and thank you for the presentation. So basically, we've been having various presentations from Sean, from the McGill team, and also from HIL and IIT. So what we're trying to develop here is to have a whole value chain in the agricultural system, which we've established that is multi-sectorial, and it has to be multi-stakeholder. We need to be collaborative in what we are doing and trying to establish what we are calling the food convergence. And this is going to be powered by both the supercomputing and also by the data, which is very important. I've seen that there have been some discussions in the chat box. Please keep them going on. And it's important that we tie in this with other initiatives and be collaborative as much as possible, because what we are aiming to do is convergence, which we've already shown is to bring together various initiatives in what we are doing. And we have some discussants in the room before we go to our next session. Lucy is from the agricultural value chain. Lucy, do you want to have a few words in about 1 or 2 minutes?
Yes, thank you very much, Kweku. My internet connection is not stable, so if you don't mind, I want to switch on my video. I hope you can hear me quite well.
I can hear you quite well, yes.
Thank you very much. So I've really enjoyed this session, and I'm very excited about what is happening. It is in line with what Agribusiness Value Chain Federation does as a catalyst in the agri-food sector. Agribusiness Value Chain Federation Ghana, what we do is facilitate activities along the agri-food sector value chain. And everything I've heard so far is really exciting me because it's in line with our initiatives. Now we talk about the supply side of the agri-food sector and then the demand side of the agri-food sector. For us as catalysts, or for us as advocates, or for us as change agents, in the supply side, what we are aiming to do is empower every single actor in terms of knowledge, attitude, and skills, so that they see the value of data. They see the value of data, and in this new dispensation, digital data, so that they can use it to enhance their activities and their operations as business entities and as actors in their various enterprises. This is to do with MSMEs in the both supply side of the agri-food sector chain and the demand side of the agri-food sector chain. What am I saying? For the farmers, for example, you have to be able to educate them enough so that they do not shortchange quality for what they will gain in terms of selling their goods at a price and shortchanging it or exchanging it for quality. So you have to educate and empower the farmer, a smallholder farmer, enough to know that aflatoxins are very, the effects of aflatoxins on his final product. So in the entire cropping cycle, you empower him through digital agri extension services, which is going to prompt him along the cropping cycle to the end, so that at the end, when there's harvest, the harvest time, his produced maize or his groundnuts has a low level of aflatoxins due to the exclusive digital agronomic services or the physical agronomic services or the data he has been able to access through several media channels or tools. So that is one of our aims, to be able to empower the different actors like smallholder farmers with knowledge, attitude, skills to enhance their products, to enhance their services in order to make them valuable players in the agri-food sector value chain. That is one thing. And to the other side, that is the demand side, to empower consumers to know the difference between eating right and eating well, so that malnutrition and the whole concept of malnutrition and being overweight is balanced in such a way that, yes, we will not be able to reach Korea or Japan instantly, but we have to manage it in such a way that parents know what exactly to feed their children, the right amounts, and the right way of handling their meals, especially the women, so that their children are not malnourished or do not become overweight, because these days there's a lot of juvenile hypertension, juvenile diabetes, and the above 40s are struggling with heart disease, kidney disease, and all that. It is up to us as catalysts to educate the consumers so that we are sensitized enough to know food safety and nutritional values of what we are eating, the calories we are eating. So in doing this, data science and data sensitive science is key to what we are doing, and it's key in line to what I'm hearing now from other panelists. So that is one thing. So in doing this in both supply side and demand side, we have to also add collaborators like people, we are the panelists that are on the discussion table today. For example, people, organizations who are going to educate us more on data science and data reciprocities, where we can access data on best practices and on ongoing research, because research is not static. We have to know that, yes, research is done and it's for a particular purpose, but we keep updating it. And these repositories will update our knowledge, will update our skills, will update our attitudes as stakeholders in the agri-food sector value chain, so that we are empowered enough to make decisions for the benefit of each and every actor within our ecosystem. So all in all, what I'm saying is that this is a good collaboration between the demand side, the supply side, and the ecosystem that revolves around these two critical stakeholders to collaborate enough for the eradication of poverty, for the eradication of inequality, for the eradication of hunger, in line with SDG 2 and Agenda 2063. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Thank you so much for that. And we are glad for you to also be in our discussion session and for those points you've highlighted. Without much ado, Andre, we move on to the next panel so that we can merge the discussions. Do you have up that slide for that?
Yes, I do. Okay, just 1 second. I'll switch to that.
So in this session, we'll be looking at the high performance computing and some digital. We'll be looking at the high level discussion, and we're looking at multi-sector jurisdiction in terms of investment, capacity building, and digital transformation. And first up in the presentation, okay, is Dr. Boji going to go first? Andre?
I think it's for Francis to go first.
Okay, all right. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, is it morning or evening, wherever you are. The name is Francis Kebwachi, yes. Really, I'm the Deputy Chief IT Officer in terms of IT infrastructure for the University of Ghana. I'm also a part-time lecturer, senior part-time lecturer. I teach advanced computer architecture and computer engineering. Thank you. So can I see the next page for the slide, please? Yeah, so this is the data center for University of Ghana. In fact, University of Ghana is one of the first universities probably in the sub-region. I remember some Nigerian colleagues coming to look at this setup in 2009, 2010 when we built it. We built it with IBM-based servers. But currently we have hyper-converged infrastructure installed. We also have synergy solution, and we have some of the fast, in fact, combination of fast storage to empower high-performance computing infrastructure. We have a high-performance computing infrastructure specifically set up for WACBIB, and I believe that most of the colleagues around the globe heard about the University of Ghana having their scientists running a genome. In fact, they were among the first people to run some genomes, and that is set up in this data center. And we have huge, currently we have in excess of about 500 Intel-based cores that are available for the university community for research. And unfortunately for University of Ghana, we don't have all the centers sited at one place. For example, we have WACSI. WACSI is West Africa Crop Center, that is a center of excellence for crop production, the shared knowledge across the globe, particularly with the sub-region. And all these are available. In fact, this setup is available for storage for whatever research that people are doing within the University of Ghana, which based on the access rights are available with their collaborators around the globe. So this is the data center for you. I don't know if the other slides are available, please. Andre, did you add the others? Yeah, okay. So basically this was I was talking about West Africa Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens. This is purely like medical, but they also have collaboration with other center of excellence. For example, they also run similar what they call partnership with the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement, which is a partnership between University of Ghana and Cornell University, USA. And it was established in 2007 with funding with Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa and the University of Ghana to train plant breeders in Africa, working on improving African crops in local environment for farmers. And this AFLATOXIN that you were mentioning, they are all over there. But that's not my fault. What I do is to set up the infrastructure and to be made available for this center of excellence, WACBIB, which was one of the first African centers that successfully sequenced genomes for SARS, COVID. I mean, we all know about COVID-19 pandemic. They were one of the people center that, and that is run from this data center I showed earlier. So West Africa Crop Research Center is one of the center of excellence that is doing wonderful job for agriculture, as you have been discussing. So this infrastructure is available for all the various research going on in the University of Ghana. Please, the next one, please. Yeah, so basically, agriculture-based research centers, we have about 3 major other remote centers. One at Kade is the Forest and Horticulture Crop Research Center. They all do the research with other partners around the globe, Europe, America, and that is about 100 and something miles from University of Ghana in Accra. And they share this information on the database that's available for their collaborators and people who have centers. And we have forest-based research, we have livestock-based poultries, which is also Nungua, and we have soil and irrigation research center based in Akuse, Hong, and of course, the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement that I mentioned, which is center at Legon here. The three other ones are sited away from the capital Accra, but they all collaborate with their colleagues around the globe and they share information according to whatever agreement they have. Please, the next one. Yeah, and then this fits into the government-owned digital strategy. As most of you, if you read around Ghana, government is rather trying to formalize the economy to improve access to government revenue and of course social intervention, and also to support efficiency of governance. Recently, the government of Ghana has launched a digital platform that stores the information about cocoa farmers in particular. You know, Ghana has been supported with cocoa as a major source of revenue for government, and until recently that oil came in. So government has seen the need to empower them. And I think that this platform that we set up fit into the digital technology for farmers or for agriculture as you are discussing over today. And I think that fits into, and this will really empower the farmers across the country so that knowledge will not be the preserve of the capital, but all the regions and the districts. Once it's available, wherever it is remotely in Ghana, people will have access to the information, whether it is chemical, or whether it's any new knowledge or seed sharing, then this kind of information can be propagated at a click of an update on a database. Please, the next one, please. Yeah, so I've talked about WACI, which is a center that was established. And what I'm saying that WACI, for example, have 6 compute nodes, 2 master nodes, 216 CPU, in fact, Intel-based CPU, 12 NVIDIA GPUs. So this is a fast, so either two, they will run their system with probably Oxford University or Cambridge, but now they have it here on premise. And it's available, and it's available not only for WACI, it's available for the university community, and in fact, the country as a whole. And I know that other colleagues, other collaborators from the sub-region are using this platform. And we have a hyper-converged infrastructure now with 100 terabytes of storage, 2.1 terabyte of memory, synergy solution for HP with combined storage of, in fact, we have excess of 300 terabytes of storage. So these are listed. We have some other old solutions based on 3-part storage, HP Matrix private cloud that is owned by the University of Ghana. Please, the next one, please. Yeah, okay, so university strategy in a way is to digitize access and make things available and knowledge sharing across the globe, sub-region, and also to develop intranet to improve the academic and administrative processes within the university, improve the e-learning and online teaching and research, so that whatever information they have here is available to other colleagues across the globe, and improve access to information to the publics by the university, so that people don't need to come to the university to get whatever information or whatever innovative ideas are coming out of the research, and to lead research and innovation in the sub-region and create a competitive environment for the faculty to collaborate with the rest of the world. Please, the next one. Yeah, so government decision to roll out broadband presence throughout the country to make knowledge sharing as accessible and affordable as much as possible. This is the problem with sub-Saharan Africa. Digital presence is a key that we need to really confront to become competitive, to play a role in the global knowledge economy. And I think this is what the government is doing. That's in the right direction. And this will affect all facets of life through agriculture, health, education, social inclusion, human capacity development, which also supports, if you like, the SDGs that the global community is working towards. Please, the next one. Okay, I think that's the brief. And to be frankly, I should say that I only put this thing together because Andre got in touch with me last night. But there's so much that the university is doing if there are any other question or there are anything that anybody would like to know, I think my name is there, my contact is there, one can reach me. I am here to support the university community to build their knowledge base and to share with their colleagues around the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Francis. Thank you for that presentation. And up next, we have Stephen Adler. Steve, are you able to connect?
I am. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you, and your name is wrongly listed as Andre.
You know,
Yes.
Andre, there's two of us for some reason. I guess I probably the way I logged in, but
Yes.
my name is
All right.
Andre, thank you very much for inviting me to participate. It's great to be here. I've really enjoyed the presentations this morning. A little background, do you guys have my charts? Andre, do you have them?
No, I don't think I do. I thought you would share your screen. Can you do that?
Oh, I can do that, but maybe you have, if you, let me see if I can find them.
Yeah, otherwise I don't think you sent it to me, did you?
I did.
Oh.
But I can also share. Let me see how to do that. Hold on. Share screen. Nope. Host participant. Nope. You disabled it.
Hold on. Susie, can you please give the hosting to Steve?
Sorry, what's the name of the host?
Steve. Well, now he's under my name, but it's Stephen.
Okay, one moment.
Stephen Adler.
Cool. All right, so while that's going on, maybe I'll introduce myself. I'm Steve Adler. I used to work for IBM, and it was while I was working for IBM in 2014 that I first met Andre Lepierre and was the original co-sponsor for GODAN. I was a speaker and a participant at the US-Africa Leadership Summit that President Obama hosted in 2014, and I hosted the first Africa Open Data Jam as a side event to that event. I went on to help the World Bank organize the first Africa Open Data Conference in Dar es Salaam in 2015. And I've been kind of an innovator and activist in open data in a whole variety of different fields around the world for the last decade. I worked with the United Nations on Sustainable Development Goals and was a founding partner of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. And I've done a whole bunch of work in Africa, Latin America, Europe, United States, around the world on open data issues. So far, I can't share my screen. So,
yes,
Andre, you might have my deck. I sent it to you in email if you can find it.
Yeah, I do have a PDF file that you sent.
Can you share it now?
Yeah, just put that up. I can try again. Nope, still can't. Can you put it up?
Yeah. Oh.
So while that's going on, while he's finding my presentation, maybe we can talk a little bit about the state of open data. Oh, it says now I'm the host. Okay. Let me see if I can let me get the deck up. I apologize to everybody for this. Let's see.
So Susie, you need to put Steve.
Can you see that now?
The host. Ah, you got it.
Hey, that's great. Let me. Okay, good. So first, I think I'm not gonna dwell too much on this. I think everybody knows that open data was first created by the World Bank in 2005 and 6 and became a thing around the world when President Obama created data.gov in 2009. Since then, thousands of cities and nations around the world have been publishing it. A lot of the data that's published even to this day is of limited utility. It depends upon the statistical capacity of the government that publishes, as well as the funding and resources available for sharing. The beautiful thing about open data is, of course, it's human and machine readable, available for anyone to use for any purpose without permission. But With all that said, in the United States, in Europe, in Latin America, and Africa, we still have tremendous challenges with the quality of the data that's published and the frequency of the updates. It's especially true in Africa, where statistical capacity for most African governments is lagging in other parts of the world. And so the quality and frequency of the data that's published is lagging as well. And that's a significant challenge. And I think for me, as a data professional, it means that we really shouldn't be too reliant or too expectant that we're going to see major revolutionary changes in the quality and frequency of updates of open data in Africa anytime soon. Now, the good news is that Africa is urbanizing so rapidly. A recent OECD report says that about 50% of the population of Africa currently lives in an urbanized area, that is anything, a city or town above 10,000 people. As you look at this map, you can see that a large amount of those people are living in areas that are close to the coasts. That's especially good because those urbanized individuals are close to the coast, which means that they have access to broadband. It's in the interior of Africa where telecommunications capabilities are more limited, that broadband access is more difficult. But broadband on the coasts, especially near major population centers, is more plentiful, and that means that computational capacity can be accessed. Urbanization in Africa also means that preferences of consumers is really changing. Urban professionals are better educated, they have more income, and they have a different demand for food. They're looking for things that are more convenient. They're looking for things, as Andre said earlier, unfortunately, they're looking for more processed and packaged foods, which leads to greater obesity challenges. But from a supply chain perspective, it means that they're looking for higher quality, greater safety, more convenience, and it makes cities the hubs of local agriculture, which is the same as in Europe and the United States and many other advanced nations. African cities function just like other cities in other advanced parts of the world, which means that supply chains for agriculture can be looked at the same way they are in other parts of the world, which means that we can use the same technologies that we do in other parts of the world to study the agricultural supply chains in Africa, mostly, not fully, because there still, of course, is a regulatory lag. National governments lag far behind in regulatory programs and policies to support industry. There's still going to be a data lag in terms of sophistication of data from supply chain partners. But there are some other sources that we can look at, which I want to talk about in this presentation, which allow us to collect data about agricultural activity without potentially drawing from individuals or drawing from public data sources. So I'm sure everyone's talked about satellite images, and there's a widespread use of satellite, of remote sensing across Africa to understand farm types and sizes. That's true. Of course, satellites only take a picture of what's just happened. They don't take a picture of what's happening. They're not video cameras. They're only observing in a moment in time. And I would probably argue that what's happening on the farm itself is probably the least interesting part of the agricultural supply chain, because what's happening on the farm is so largely baked into the skills and capabilities of the farmers that the ability to monitor and sense what's happening there, except for the largest farms, but for 50% of African small stakeholder farmers, monitoring through remote sensing probably is not as interesting as the next things. The next things are how to use satellites for monitoring things besides land use, and that is human use. Sean talked earlier about the use of agent-based models. Agent-based models are a technology for inferring how humans behave given certain types of conditions. And we used to use agent-based modeling when we couldn't directly observe what humans are doing. But today, satellite imagery is so sophisticated that we can observe what people are doing. Now, again, it's not a video feed, it's a photo. So it's a snapshot in time. But when you compare snapshots in time of different human activities, you have basically frame over frame over frame, and you can measure what's happening. In the example you're looking at now, you're looking at cars in a parking lot. And those are cars in a parking lot. They can be for a retail outlet. They could be for an agricultural distribution center. They could be for a port. They could be for a market. And day over day, if you have a clear image, you can count the number of cars using AI. And you don't need an advanced computational center in Ghana or Nairobi to do that. You can use advanced computational centers in the United States and access them via cloud computing, in which all you basically have to do is access a development environment that taps into the AI algorithms necessary to count cars in parking lots. And you can get back how many cars are there in the parking lot. And what does it tell you? Well, it's an indicator of activity. In this case, since it's a photo of a store, it's an indicator of retail activity. And if you count the number of cars in a parking lot day over day over day, you can figure out how much retail activity that store is generating. The same would be true if you're counting the number of cars in a city. And the World Bank did this, where they counted the number of cars in Cairo, major African city, every day for a year. And then they did it for years. And how did they do this for years? They didn't do it like today versus tomorrow. It's that Digital Globe, which has these super high resolution satellites, has a database of 120 petabytes of Earth observation data that they've been collecting for the last 20 years. And you can use that as a historical repository of human activity. So you can analyze what did people do in the past and use that to infer how current behavior compares to past. And so that's what they did. They analyzed the number of cars. They used an algorithm to count the number of cars in the entire city of Cairo for a decade. And what they found is that cars are an incredible indicator of economic activity. In fact, the number of cars as a line on a graph corresponds almost exactly to the GDP numbers of the country of Egypt, because Cairo is such an important part of the economy of Egypt. They used that, the World Bank did that just to estimate what the impact of the air pollution would be on human health in the city. But they discovered by looking at the GDP numbers, and they did this again for Sao Paulo in Brazil, that counting cars would be an interesting economic indicator. So if it's an indicator of economic growth in a city, it can also be an indicator of economic growth and productivity for farms and for farm supply chains, and the number of cars that are going to a market, even in a small city with only 10,000 people, if you have a reliably clear satellite image. So this is an idea for how you can calculate the impact of human activity and use that as a proxy for measuring the productivity of a supply chain. Another idea is to capture cell phone telemetry data. In countries like Kenya and Nigeria and Ghana, where smartphones are becoming an ever-present part of life, they aren't just providing consumers with great services that they can read on their phone about the weather and about other things, but they're also being used for people to go to work, to figure out the best route they can take in their car. And when they use these geolocation services, whether it's Waze or Google Maps or something else, they're also providing this telemetry data about their whereabouts to third parties, and third parties strip out the personal identifiers and sell that telemetry data. And that telemetry data, in addition to satellite images, can provide real-time analysis of where people are doing things. You can use telemetry data for farm fields to see how many people are in a field if they've got a smartphone. You can use telemetry data even indoors because the GPS signal is being transmitted. You can use telemetry data in shopping malls or in markets, and you can use it over time to measure the productivity of what people are doing. Now, these data sources aren't open. They're not free. They have to be acquired. And normally, the types of entities that would acquire this type of information would be startups. Because when you have an when you have a rapidly urbanizing market, and you have urban professionals who want new types of food, that provides with an expansion of the agricultural supply chain where more suppliers are participating. And that means that there are more people interested in making money, and more people making money means more startups are going to get involved. They're going to be looking for differential opportunities to figure out, oh, this product, we're importing more products from the United States because people want to eat imported goods. Couldn't we make the same type of good here in Kenya or in Ghana at a lower cost and sell it for the same price? And how would we figure out where to get that land, or what would be the closest place, or what are the traffic conditions that would impede us from getting to market? And data like this would be used for making estimates like that. And so what I think, what I look at today, when I look at the data coming from Africa, I think there's an enormous opportunity given the startup community that already exists in many, many capitals across Africa, the tremendous IT investments that are going into African startups. I think there's a huge opportunity to take advantage of these remote sensing data sources with the startup community to jumpstart new types of agricultural startups that are focusing on providing value-added data services for a variety of different productivity goals. Of course, the downside to all of that is that with rising demand from cities for convenient, safe, and available food, unfortunately, that means that imports are going to rise tremendously, and that's going to tremendously challenge small stakeholder farms across Africa. We'll probably see a lot of small stakeholder farms that are unable to provide the quality and convenience that city dwellers demand become consolidated or lose out in the economic race for feeding cities. And that means that that land may become available for other purposes, or there may be urbanization, or there may be increased poverty and unemployment in rural areas as more and more people buy imports for food instead of buying locally. And that's a major challenge. And it's a major challenge because of many other challenges: climate change, war, pests, pandemics. The problem we face today in many of the poorest parts of Africa is that development assistance is always intervention-based, which means we always wait for the bad thing to happen first, and then we go and we study the problem, and then we try to figure out how to intervene. And increasingly, those interventions are too late, and lots of people die before we have a chance to really figure out how to solve the problem. And I think that places a new burden on development agencies to become data savvy, data professionals, data science driven, because we're going to need a lot more data, a lot faster, from a lot more sources, eating up a lot more computational capacity to be able to react in much quicker ways to the challenges that are going to face rural, poor African people in the next 20, 30 years. I hope this presentation has been helpful and useful. Andre, I've really enjoyed putting it together and to participating in GODAN once again. And I welcome any questions or comments anybody has from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let me get back my screen.
Thank you. Next we have up next is Ralph Baer from Ralph, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes, can you hear me?
Great. Yes, I can hear you. Great. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing some of the panelists here indicating the value that agriculture and data is kind of bringing all this information together. So I'm here representing Bayer, which may have been also known as Legacy Monsanto, but two organizations came together here in 2018. And very, very excited to share some insights and innovation that's happening within the agriculture space, as well as to kind of indicate the value that we're looking at in terms of the challenges that we face today within agriculture and the digital strategy that we have pertaining to what we hope to do to mitigate all these issues moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, I'm a host here, and in the meantime, I'll go ahead and also introduce myself in terms of what I do there. So I'm going to go ahead and try right now.
Susie, can you make Ralph the host so he can share his screen?
I think he is. Yeah.
All right, so please let me know if you can see my screen.
Perfect.
All right, great.
Yes, it's up.
So for Bayer, what I really do, I'm originally from Zimbabwe, by the way, and migrated to the United States about 20 years ago. I'm about 6 years. So I'm the head of digital pipeline portfolio for the organization. So my role really entails creating the digital strategy for the organization in terms of what we do within IT. I want to go ahead and preface what BEAR is for some of the individuals that are on the call that are not potentially familiar with the organization, so you get to understand what we do for BEAR from a holistic picture. And then I'll get into the really exciting stuff, which I do on a day-to-day basis, which is talking about how we innovate and use digital transformation and digital innovation to enhance agriculture from big farms to smallholder farmers within the different regions and countries that are located across the globe. So at BEAR, really, if you look at the organization, our mission is to look at it in three different ways. We look at our purpose, which is the science for better life, our vision, which is hunger for all, and then, health for all and hunger for none. And this is really part of our core strategy when you look at the three business functions that we have within BEAR, which is the pharmaceutical sector, the consumer health sector, and then the crop science sector. The pharmaceutical sector is potentially what right now we're in the midst of a pandemic. So, obviously there's going to be some pharmaceutical innovation that's happening there that's potentially in the forefront of our mindset with Pfizer and biotech coming up with innovations that are potentially going to be able to help us go back to the, maybe adjust to the new norm, whatever that may be moving forward with vaccines that are available. BEAR is part of the companies that are doing some of that work, and especially if you're talking about the African region, BEAR is part of the organizations that actually came up with the hydrochloroquine, which is mainly used for malaria within the African region. So some of you may be familiar with BEAR from the pharmaceutical sector side. And then from a consumer health, this may be over-the-counter, maybe medications that you may see, aspirin, Tylenol, and different other kinds of things. And then for the purpose of this conversation, right, the crop science department is where I belong, which is basically enabling the business structure pertaining to the customer experience and innovation in digital agriculture, so to speak. And all of this is really integrated on how we do things using what we call our life principles, which are our values pertaining to leadership. Right, we want to be the leader in the agriculture, pharmaceutical, and consumer health space. We want to do it right using science, which basically comes to the integrity of how we do work, and then comes along as well with the flexibility, right? As we understand, especially given the pandemic situation, we need to be agile in the ways of working that we conduct today. We cannot go back to our old ways of working, right? And so we need to find means and ways to be able to change and navigate and identify means and ways to do it efficiently, right? And even responsibly as well, as you can think about the bigger space when you think about our world from a sustainability aspect as well. So going deeper into the crop science, our main portfolio really is housed around three things. right, the chemical side, which I was very happy to see some discussions here pertaining to how we can increase our food security and sustainability, especially given the insecticides or the herbicides or the issues that we're facing when it comes to our crop protection. Right? It's going to be climate change. It's going to be opportunities for us to increase yield using specific, chemicals that are available for us. And so we would thrive on creating that portfolio, as well as the seed side, which is pertaining to, the crops that we grow on a regular cadence, and that may grow from rice to canola to maize, corn, soybean, and vegetables, creating those seeds traits to increase the yield so that we can grow what I like to call more with less, given the challenges that we have in place today. And the last piece of our portfolio is really more on the environmental side, which is kind of comes along the pieces of lawns and forestry and vector control. And all this is actually housed towards the area that I belong to, which is the digital technology and services. How can we use digital transformation and digital tools in place today, especially when it comes to the data platforms that we have, in a manner that's efficient, that enables us to execute what we call precision agriculture, which is basically helping us to come up with solutions for the issues that we're currently facing in our day-to-day life. Lastly, about BEAR that I'll talk about here is just where we are located in our global footprint, so to speak. So we're headquartered in Moinheim, Germany. That's where the global headquarters are located. We have offices across the globe. So our North America offices are in St. Louis region, which is where I'm currently located and speaking to you from. We also have offices within the Latam region, which covers the Latin America region, which are in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And last but not least, We have offices in Singapore, which cover the Asia Pacific region, for sure. And the Africa region, maybe the purpose of this conversation, falls underneath the EMEA region, which is covering the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. So we're located in about 88 countries, and our performance portfolio value really kind of crosses across 153 organizations. And everything that we really do, to every organization, to every smallholder farmer that's out there, is to really create a customer-focused strategy, build efficiencies around that, and make it much faster, especially for our farmers to make decisions that they're trying to indicate and bring value to the organization as we move forward. So now I'm going to go into the exciting stuff, into the agriculture, right? As we know today, our world is facing so many different challenges. One of the greatest challenges that we have in place that we're currently going through is the increase in population, right? We have an estimate that by 2050, there's going to be, I guess I'm going to say, an approximation of 2 billion people being added to our current state today. And we need to grow more. That's about 50% more that's going to be required to feed this population. And we know that these growing challenges are also going to come with health. What's happening now is for good reasons, right? People are living longer because of the pharmaceutical and the innovation and advancements that are happening within our healthcare industry, so to speak. So people are able to live longer lives, more meaningful lives, and so that's going to require us to grow a little bit more with less resources as well. Other challenges that we're facing today are even contributed by agriculture itself, and this is climate change, so to speak, right? Harvest losses caused by climate change, carbon footprint. How can we do that and do it significantly in a manner that's consistent and that's in a responsible manner, right? And so there's pressures around the ecosystem and the environments that we live in today that are causing us, from just a natural resource perspective, that are causing us to identify means and ways of us to innovate, identify means and ways to do it responsibly and efficiently as well. So then the solution really comes into then we as individuals potentially that belong in many different areas, especially when it comes to agriculture. How can we grow more with less? What can we do with the scarcity of natural resources that we have in place? How can we continue to work and influence the NGOs that are present in many various organizations and countries that are helping smallholder farmers, that are collaborating with smallholder farmers to enhance the livelihood of individuals in those countries? And I've seen it firsthand in Zimbabwe growing up, the great opportunity of NGOs coming in and providing some of those insights and input. Like, how can we help our consumers to be more informed about our food choice? I think it was Lucy that was talking about, educating people about the products and the foods that we have that are out there pertaining to nutrition and the products that can provide us with a balanced meal, so to speak, right? And that also entails the economics of farming, right? What are some of the opportunities that are out there that you can take advantage of? I think Stephen just talked one about data, but there's also information pertaining to where does the money come from to help you, borrow something so that you can potentially grow more, right? And how can you use big data to your advantage? What are some of the technological advancements that are out there? Understanding that innovation is happening around us, especially with individuals using more technological tools and opportunities there to drive these insights. And what can you do to be part of the new trend that's innovating the maybe next bananas, right, so to speak, in terms of the next crop that's going to enter the market and provide much value, much more nutrition to the demographics and succession that we have, that we hope to experience in the future. So agriculture really is part of the core foundation of the opportunities and the challenges that we as individuals can solve moving forward. And so innovation is going to be key. We at Bayer are taking opportunities to solve this in 3 different ways, and I want to talk to them here briefly. So ways that we look into solving these things are in-field challenges and opportunities, and that's going to be coming from a digital perspective, as well as coming through the information that we obtain from our crop protection and our seeds and traits information pertaining to how can we come with the best corn that's best suited for an opportunity or a country in Ghana, right, that experiences this specific climate conditions, assessing the specific soil texture, and even assessing the yield that may be needed to sustain a specific demographic using data as information to help us to do that. And then obviously doing it in an incremental and I'll call it disruptive innovation, so to speak, by offering the advantages of the breakthrough, right? Because some of these breakthroughs at times are limited based upon culture, right? And even governmental policies so to speak, because we know there's different regulations across each and every country about the usage of data and the access of data. And then last but not least, how do you then invest into this information in a manner that's sustainable and that helps us deliver the agriculture, especially improving the lives of smallholder farmers in a manner that's responsible and help us make better choices and even greater choices for the farmers around the world, because we have that responsibility to really feed the world when we look at the work that we do in agriculture. So this really comes into the work that we do when we look at a plant life cycle, so to speak, right? We try to look at it in a manner that we need to identify means and ways to provide impactful solutions and tailored solutions from when a seed is planted into the ground during the seed and trades side. So providing the farmer an opportunity to have high yield to when a plant is actually very much healthy, and even in between, right? Assessing what are the seed treatments that need to occur. In North America, the farmers here struggle with nitrogen, which is something that's only a problem in North America, right? So when it rains, the rainfall kind of sometimes washes away the nitrogen that's already found in the soil. So by the use of remote sensors, by the use of satellite imagery and information, now you can assess which part of your field needs a specific seed treatment based upon the rainfall that has occurred, right? And if you look at the modern weed and pest management and disease that are occurring, there's opportunities for us to identify solutions on how we can solve these issues for farmers so that they can be able to take a picture and be able to talk to a community of experts that can help them assess the pest control diseases that they're experiencing, that can also help them alleviate any problems that they're experiencing pertaining to the crop and yield when it comes to how to navigate the yield and disease control there. And so when we look at it, my team really then comes into play in developing solutions for all this information, right? When the farmer is pre-planting, they're doing the planning phase, when they're harvesting, obtaining that information, understanding exactly where they are at and where they're located to be able to provide this information. And for the most part, we all place a lot of emphasis on increasing yield, but that really tying it back together and telling the story from end to end, from when that seed was planted and having that information and having that data be in one place is going to be key for us to drive how we innovate and how we move towards the opportunity of helping farmers produce more with less. If you look back in the 1980s, right, this was the first time when satellites were being used to provide imagery solutions, so to speak, but there was no way to make sure that this data could be combined into one place. But with agricultural technologies that we have today, such as usage of satellites, such as the usage of combines, such as the usage of drones, we are actually using a laser now to measure plant height, to even assess potentially where a disease could be in a specific plant or in a specific field, so that using thermal radiation to be able to see all this information, and you can make solutions for those farmers using that information that would enable them to come with the information in one area, right? And then you may be asking yourself, so how does this apply to farmers in Africa who may not always have access to maybe sometimes more of this imagery? What we are currently doing is we are working and creating opportunities for farmers to not only, when it comes to bandwidth wise, not only be able to access this information in real time, but even have the opportunity for it to have a lag time. If you're able to allow a specific resource to come and survey your land from a technological perspective and go back and maybe take a look at it away from your field, because maybe your field is located in a remote location where we're not able to access or have this information readily available. This allows us more time for us to actually be able to access that information and provide the farmer with those kind of insights. And we're running pilots in India at this point in time with one of our applications, which is called FarmRise, which I'll talk to later, just indicating the same value. Because at the end of the day, what we know that really drives agriculture, in addition to having all this information be housed in one area, is data, right? Data is going to be everything for our farmers, whether it's understanding what crop and information I need to grow, understanding the environmental conditions that are there, understanding the opportunities in terms of information that's already found out there that we can use, and obviously using the latest and greatest technologies such as sensors and satellites that enhance their decision making in growing opportunities that provide value. Because if you bring all this information in one area, what I like to call it the data in one place, actually going to help the farmers come up with valuable insights. And at the end of the day, their outputs in terms of what they bring outside in the field is going to be providing so much greater standards by giving the growers an opportunity to make the discretion on the work that they're doing and transition them from, working from an intuition based. I think this is how much rainfall I got on my field, so this is the amount of fertilizer I need to apply, to where it's almost like I know this is how much rainfall I made. That fell on my field, and these are the decisions that I need to make moving forward. Or I know this is the best issue that I'm having with my field, and these are the specific next directions that I need to take moving forward. And this information just really helps us to gather this information and visualize it and diagnose it in a manner that makes sense. And the most important thing is share that information, right? I think Steve mentioned this, right? Comparing and sharing and making benchmarks across what are some of the individuals, maybe taking the names from them, but what are some of the individuals that have the same profile as me doing in terms of how they grew the crop, what are some of the experiences, and how can I learn from them, and how can I also share learnings with them on what I'm doing, so that we can all be a community of farmers instead of competing together, but we can actually compete to produce greater yield instead of competing across together in that manner. So with that, really,
we have 1 minute.
Yes, please. So with that, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, but with that, I was just going to end with indicating some key features that are available, which I won't go into much details here, and also indicate, the opportunity for FarmRise, which is currently being run in India right now, and the opportunity for us to extend that in opportunities such as Kenya, such as South Africa, opportunities that they were running pilots there, as well as Ghana and Zambia, in opportunities in understanding, what we can do, how we can work with small farmer holders to be able to create the sustainability and information that's needed for them, so that they can make this decision and use the best tools and data that's out there to use less water and land and resources and energy that's already given to you to drive insights, using data, using digital tools to enable success for farmers. So with that being said, I know I've said a lot because this is a very insightful topic, and I wanted to make sure that I give a holistic picture in terms of the work and the impact that data and digital tools can have across really not just big farmers, small farmers, but across all farmers across the globe. And want to thank the organization for allowing us the opportunity to come and share some insights on the exciting work that's happening in agriculture, especially within the digital timeframe.
Thank you so much, Ralph. And thank you so much. Susie, we have Pamesh, but I think he's going to share his screen. He's going to be the next speaker, Pamesh from the World Bank, Pamesh from the World Bank. Pamesh, can you unmute, and so are you able to hear us?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate Kwaku and Andre the opportunity to talk to this group. And I think Ralph has made my task a little bit easier, because I think he has laid down the kind of futuristic scenario of what the agriculture 2.0 or 3.0 could look like, if we used data as a kind of an enabler for new kind of agriculture. So basically at the World Bank, we are now looking at how the future agriculture could be more data and digitally driven. And I just want to share our perspective of how we think about this topic, as well as also give you some example of what we are doing in certain countries in Africa to create this kind of a platform. So as you all know that after COVID-19, it's the first time that the rural internet users are higher than urban internet users globally. And even in Africa, we find that the internet usage during COVID has increased by almost 45%, which would have happened after 3 years. So COVID is in a way a very big accentuator of the kinds of things which would have happened in the normal course. The second is the e-commerce activity in agriculture is now increased considerably. And even in Somalia, we have currently 5 people who are providing e-commerce services on food commodities right now. They have created what I would call is a more like a niche kind of startup companies coming on that. So, and then we did a study in Africa on the startup community, and we found that there are 595 startups with huge potential in Africa who have worked on, agri-tech, digital data in various kinds of things. And out of them, 173 are scalable. What is lacking? And then when we went and met these people, what did they say? They said they spent 80% time on collecting data and only 20% time on developing products and services, and then hardly 5% time on scaling up. So all of them are stuck at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 farmers because we don't have a platform of data access analytics and available in a form in which they can straight away go to products and services. So what we feel now strongly is that investment in data platforms in agriculture has to be treated as a public good, basically. And what we want to do now is to talk with all ministries of agriculture in Africa, but not only in Africa, but in all parts of the world, which have traditionally been focused more on the analog side for a long time, and they deliver services, inputs, subsidies, incentives all the time. But their kind of current investments on digitization, farm registry, data on what are the agronomic practices is not digitized. And because it's not digitized, we are not able to move to more, nimble and customized and more efficient forms of extension and service delivery. So we feel that we need to invest in data platforms as a public good and digitize all the data which is there right now, which is available in a very kind of scattered and fragmented kind of way. And what we have done now in Kenya is worked with the government to set up some kind of a big data platform now with KALRO. KALRO is a consortium of all the research and agriculture organizations in Kenya and help them set up a big data center. But not only that, as I think some of the speaker was saying, that there is a lot of satellite data available, which can give you a high resolution data on farms and all the other aspects which we were talking about. So we also have now invested in setting up an egg observatory in Kenya, which will allow all this data to be available in a form where it can be used in a way there. And the third thing, what we are investing in is what we call as a million farmer platform in Kenya, which is basically a platform. And someone said rightly that we have invested in projects for a very long time, but we have not invested in ecosystems and platforms. So Billion Farmer Platform is what brings about 290 big farmer organizations, which are like the cooperatives of the farmers who are part of that. Then you have about 60 startups, you have financial institutions, you have KALRO, government, and then you have agribusiness companies coming on that platform. And we would like the Bears, our friend Larf, to also join the platform because I think he has some very interesting solutions to share. So we basically have now started the process of innovation challenges, which we offer on a periodic basis, in which allows us to test the solutions and take them and then bring the data part of it. So Microsoft Africa has joined this platform and is now offering its Azure Data Edge platform to all the startups free. They're giving them credit and it's an analytic platform available to them to analyze their data. So I would say that in Africa, the challenge is not that much only in data, but it's on analyzed data and the data which is utilizable and can be analyzed. And then finally, we have to spend a little bit time on incubating and accelerating. So we have invested in an incubator now in Africa. We are working with Mercy Corps to work on that incubator so that these organizations which are working with 3,000 farmers and 4,000 are able to scale up to 3,000 to 10,000 to 20,000. We have no doubt that if we are able to create this platform which brings data, innovation, and applications and scale all together under one platform, we will be able to really do this on scale, which is quite large. But the main issue which right now we are facing is that we need transaction data, which is really being collected through M-Pesa and all kinds of platforms. We have the fintech platform, then the satellite data, which is the resource use data, and then the data on the agronomy and all to come on one platform. And the incentives for the institutions to hold on to the data are very large. They keep on holding on to data. And so we have to really create some kind of a data governance and data transparency architecture and invest in that so that this data is accessible to the startups who will be real innovators and develop products and services. We really want agencies like Bayer and Olam and Syngentas, with whom we have started working now, to also join this platform, because they will be able to do this on scale, because they work with commercial farmers also. Because this whole approach is not viable with small farmers in the beginning. So you have to really work with larger farmers and commercial farmers, and then try to downscale this and make it available to smaller farmers. We are also now trying to pilot a scheme which is called data vouchers for smallholders, which is basically you really are able to sell your data and then get services in return. Because I think you need some amount of equity in this data access and the services which you get there. But to sum it up, I think since we are running short of time, that we need investment in data platforms, we need investment in innovation ecosystems, and then we need investment in scaled up platforms which bring these people together. And we are very interested in anyone who is in this call to really join these platforms. And we are going to now start working in about 10 countries in Africa, which is Uganda, Rwanda, and Senegal, Nigeria, Sierra Leone. We have a sprinkling of countries where governments have shown interest in working with us on this. So I'll stop there and welcome any questions there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Panish from World Bank. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I don't know if Lloyd and Andre, you can come in now.
Thank you very much. Actually, we have our discussants that are still around, as well as our rapporteur, Akin Remy. I don't know if they would have one last word to say before we wrap this up and close.
Peter, are you done?
Okay, well, I don't know if we have a communication issue, but otherwise I'll just try to summarize maybe.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to the panelists for what I think has been a series of very interesting presentations. It's difficult to summarize such a broad range of issues other than through what's at the center of it. And it's really about an ecosystem. So we're talking about data ecosystem because we're talking about the way the food ecosystem should be looked at. We saw that there are so many angles to it, of course, from every stage of the production process, well presented by Bayer, among others, up to the consumption and the health of the citizens, which is ultimately the goal that we're all aiming at. We spoke about economy also, direct and indirect ways to assess the progress we make in economy, having in mind that progress there should normally lead, if we are guided by the right policies, to better health. Not always, though, as I showed in the first part of this conversation, where there's always a risk. The risk is when we move out of hunger that we fall into non-communicable diseases, obesity and the like. So there again, data is very important. We spoke about many technical ways and a lot of progress that's being done on the technical side of things to integrate all of this mass of data that is now becoming more and more available to allow us, whether consumers, leaders, politicians, business people, to make enlightened decisions towards the running of their operation or running of the sector. So I think it's been very informative, but there's so much more to say, and more important, there's so much more to do. So this will not be the last. I'm sure will be rather the first of the next round of further discussions. So on this note, maybe I will just conclude in thanking all the participants, in particular the Africa Open Data and Internet Research Foundation, Kwaku and the team, thanking the panelists, especially those from McGill University, from the Ghana Supercomputing Center, the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, Carnegie Mellon University, IITA, CJIR, HIL Industries, of course, Ocean Data Alliance, and Bayer and the World Bank. So thank you to all of you. Thank you also to our discussants from the World Wide Web Foundation and the Agribusiness Value Chain Federation of Ghana. So for everybody's information, we have recorded this meeting, so we're going to make the link available to all of you. So there will be a communication announcing that, and we'll also produce a summary of the key conclusions of the meeting, which we hope would be useful to everybody. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kwaku, for your kind facilitation. And we look forward to seeing you all next time around. Thank you.